This is COVID-19 Seattle. I'm Dave Ross.
And I'm Aaron Granillo.
We had a beautiful weekend, and the governor is easing restrictions and reopening city and state parks. A lot of us got outside to enjoy the sun. Some people spent their weekend protesting at the state capitol. We'll get to that in a minute. First, Aaron, with everybody outdoors, whether they were hiking or attending protests, what do the infection numbers look like today?
Well, one of the latest coronavirus models that's been used by the White House comes from the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. Now, that model first predicted a national death toll of well over 100,000. Now the Institute is out with a new projection. It suggests more than 137,000 Americans will die from the virus by August 4th. I was looking at the state numbers, too, about 1,120 now projected in our states that could die from COVID-19. Latest death toll, by the way, in our states is 930, right around 930 people, with more than half of those, by the way, in King County. So it sounds like what the UW Institute is saying is that they bumped up their projection for the second time in a matter of weeks because a lot more people are just getting outside.
Yeah, I remember back in April, we were supposed to top out at just under 900, and that, of course, has been exceeded. One of the reasons that they decided to update the model. And I'm not too surprised by that, although I look at that in a different way, Aaron, after seeing the number of deaths in New York, for example, which is in the thousands. It makes ours look pretty small. I guess the question is, have people decided that's just what you have to accept as the cost of getting out and about more?
Yeah, here's some other interesting stats from the IHME. It said more than 15 states around our country have seen mobility increases of more than 15 percentage points since early to mid-April. And that's one of the reasons Chris Murray, the IHME's director, says there's a good chance that they'll, again, raise their projections in the coming weeks.
The big question mark is, will people's own behavior, acting responsibly, wearing a mask, avoiding coming into physical close contact, will that be enough to counteract the effects of rising mobility?
So here's the deal. In our states, even though it was such a nice weekend out there, we've only seen about a 7% increase in mobility since our lowest points back in early April. That seems to jibe with some of the studies out there that show still a majority of Washingtonians agree, at least, with the governor's stay-home orders.
And even if people are moving around more, if they take measures to protect others when they're in whatever gathering they're using their mobility for, that should work. Some of the studies that I've read indicate that if you could just get 80% of the people to mask up, that would do as much as isolating at home.
And now to the rally at the state capitol this weekend.
Freedom is the cure! Freedom is the cure! Freedom is the cure!
That was Washington State Republican from the Spokane Valley, Matt Shea, and he was leading the crowd of about 1,500 people. They showed up to demand the governor reopen the state immediately. Here's what Shea had to tell them.
This is the start. This scares the living tar out of these people. When Americans stand up united together and say enough is enough.
You might recall Matt Shea was found to have planned and participated in that domestic terrorism situation back in December. The governor, though, not budging. He is sticking to his four-phase plan. Of course, we still are in phase one, with phase two expected June 1st at the earliest. Dave, why not spend a beautiful 80-degree Saturday out there at the state capitol protesting the governor?
I'm wondering if who he's talking about when he says this scares the living daylights out of, or whatever he said there. I'm not scared. If you have the right to infect your friends if you want to, or risk. I won't say they're deliberately infecting each other, but they're certainly risking it. But if they think it's worth the risk, that's fine. I'm pretty sure. Maybe this sounds selfish, Aaron, but I'm pretty sure I can protect myself from people who are attending demonstrations like that because I shop in stores where now basically everyone wears a mask. Many times I will wear gloves so as not to spread the infection. And if you touch something in the store, you come back and you wash your hands for 20 seconds. that should protect you. So I don't feel too frightened about what Matt Shea is saying. I did notice, though, there was one cut. You didn't play this cut where he said repentance is what will save us.
Repentance.
Yes.
Repent and repent. All of us, we need to turn our hearts back toward God. We need to turn our hearts back toward our Judeo-Christian foundation.
I think this is an excellent, for years, I've been trying to grapple with this divide between religion and science. And one of the problems is that it's not easy to test religious faith. This would be the perfect time if a certain percent of the population decides to try repentance as opposed to social isolation and see what works. I'm in it for whatever works. If repentance works, that would be a lot easier to achieve than a vaccine, it seems to me.
We were able to test whether faith works right now? Is that what you're saying?
I know it probably works in the heavenly plane, but if we're talking about the earthly plane, to solve something like this is why some people find it so easy not to have faith, is because you hear people say repentance will work, and then the hurricane hits anyway. If this is one of those cases where it does work, I say let's test it.
One way to test that would be to see if any of them caught the virus. As far as I know, that last big gathering last month, it was like 2,500 people there. I don't think we have any results from any of the people who attended that rally as of yet, but it would be interesting to see, again, if a big crowd like that, if a majority or at least a minority of people out there caught the virus or not.
And if they didn't, if no one catches it, I think that must mean something as well. Either everybody of that group was not infected, or the disease isn't diseasely transmissible as we think. I would think, actually, that epidemiologists would be quite interested in tracking what the result of some of these demonstrations is.
So what Matt Shea was saying in that big chant at the beginning, though, he was saying, freedom is the cure. Freedom is the cure. There was a guy selling corn dogs out at that rally on Saturday. It's been his first sales in months. There was a woman, I think, cutting hair for people because, of course, salons are closed right now.
Yeah.
So they're saying, at least I'm getting some business out here. So is freedom the cure to all of this? I mean, is the shutdown worse than the virus?
Well, it could be. I have no doubt that it is. In all seriousness, I think it probably is for some people. I've never been in the situation where suddenly my income was entirely cut off, just absolutely shut down. That would be terrifying. And for people who've put everything they have into a small business to suddenly see themselves have to close and they have nothing coming in, of course it's more terrifying. And I can see why people would risk infection. I just hope they are truly weighing the risk and at least trying to protect themselves just in case they're wrong about this, because what also is catastrophic to a business is if the business owner gets so sick that he or she can't go back and reopen even when it's allowed.
In 1 week from today, all of SeaTac's passengers, visitors, and workers will be required to wear face coverings. They were provided to SeaTac Airport employees back on April 17th. The mandate does not apply to those who cannot medically tolerate facial coverings and also very young children. Now, the port will be discussing enforcement options at a meeting tomorrow. Meanwhile, SeaTac says departing travel is down 95%. The number of daily flyers has dropped from 50,000 to 2,500 as we enter peak summer travel season. Dave, can we learn anything from airports elsewhere about enforcing these rules?
Well, I think airports are probably the easiest places to enforce these rules because we're used to having to take off our belts and our shoes and to do anything that the TSA tells us. And I will have no problem wearing a mask to the airport. I hope they keep a supply of spares nearby so that people don't have to be turned away and miss their flight if for some reason they forgot their mask. But this is one of the things where if you make that simple change, that simple wardrobe addition, it goes a long way to allowing things to open up, because I'm pretty sure and I saw some new research of this over the week. I don't know if you saw that research where they took the dummy and they had the dummy cough and they tracked how far the microglobules travel with the green laser there, and it showed that if somebody coughs, it can travel 12 feet right in a couple of seconds, whereas if there's a mask on, it doesn't completely prevent the droplets from traveling, but they sure don't travel 12 feet, maybe, 1 foot or something, and that you can pretty easily avoid. So universal mask wearing when in public could be a great way to allow everything to reopen before the virus is finally conquered.
Well, a few weeks ago, we discussed and linked to a state website where you could complain about businesses if you thought they were breaking the stay-home order. Bellevue also unveiled an app that would allow you to report people or businesses to the city that you thought were violating the order. Groups playing together at a park, for instance, a business that you did not think was essential, that kind of stuff. So this seemed to be an effort to get people to stop calling 911 about it. Now, that list of people that filed complaints around the state has been released, likely the results of a public records disclosure request. The Seattle Times reports 2 Facebook pages have gone up posting all the information, and now those people, Dave, are getting threatening phone calls and emails.
Yeah, that's bad. They should have known up front whether it was confidential or not. We do confidential tip lines to report crimes all the time, so I'm not sure why this, for some reason, was the exception. Of course, there's a fundamental problem with this kind of thing, too. As we learned when Yelp first came out, sometimes one business will Yelp on another just to get rid of the competition. So it sounds like this is the kind of thing you got to get under control. And the way you do that is you don't just automatically close down somebody just because you get a tip. You investigate first. Use the tip as a tip, not as proof that the business is doing something wrong.
Right. By the way, the FBI has been called in to investigate those threats against the, what the Facebook groups call are snitchers, the snitchers who were...
Well, they can call them what they want, but if you threaten somebody, you deserve to be in trouble. We will be back tomorrow and every day after with a 10-minute rundown of the daily local news. You can subscribe to this podcast, and you can also find our news coverage on mynorthwest.com or listen live at 97.3 FM.